Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the series. Obviously, building a city in Minecraft. It's been a while. I apologize. This episode was obviously supposed to come out last week and then had to be delayed to the weekend. And now here we are past the weekend and the video is finally being released. And that's simply because this last week and these last 2 weeks really have been very chaotic, obviously with Thanksgiving and then with, early Christmas prep and figuring out what the plans are, and everything has been kind of all over the place. That obviously mixed with, finals coming up and stuff. It's been both busy and not busy. I guess the way to put it would be busy, but it's very specific and kind of inconvenient times. And to be honest, I've not really had that much motivation to be working on the city, which is crazy because this last episode I said I had so much motivation, I was geared and ready to go, and I did, and then that died pretty quickly. Which, is both normal and not normal for me. I can literally be one day so excited to be working on something and then wake up the next and realize, but that's a lot of work and not particularly fun work. Like I said this last episode, obviously terraforming is not exactly something I'm excited to do, not something I'm great at, but it's something that I know has to be done, that I knew had to be done because the city just really needed it. There was so much old terraforming and gardening and like tree placing that was just so bad. It was awful, straight up awful, especially for, my standards, just really, really bad. So I had to go back and just delete everything, and obviously deleting everything took some time, but then actually putting everything back, it's still not technically perfect, but what is there is a million times better than what it was. Which, of course, is kind of funny considering that obviously when this, season kind of started, I guess this would be like the third season technically, informal season again, just in case any new people around and are confused. This is one city going through many episodes, but we do a world tour every 10 episodes, and then it's kind of like a pseudo new season, like we start moving on to new topics most of the time. And of course this season was supposed to be about, the main park, and obviously that was episode 1. We started on that, but weirdly, with the Plaza Hotel and, with redoing all these park areas and what is coming up with the next episode, because I've already started on the next episode, so hopefully it won't take that long and it should be coming out on time, but at this point, no promises. Hopefully on time, next Friday. But the point being that a lot of these episodes is actually been me going back to old projects from before I started this series in the old city that I had before I restarted for this, this channel and this actual video series. But it's also been going and doing things that I did in the beginning when I started this video series. Which is, again, like I said, kind of funny how that was completely unintended. But there's been a lot of like, oh yeah, that's bad. I need to redo that. I don't, a lot of things that I used to be very proud of that looking back on it were not good at all, Which of course is in the nature of doing anything creative. Anyone who does anything creative that works with any kind of artistic medium will be able to tell you that the longer you do it, the more you come to hate your past self, right? Whether you're a painter or a writer or whatnot, oftentimes you'll look back at your work with these rose-colored glasses at first until you actually set eyes upon it and you realize, wow, I was pretty bad, wasn't I? That's just the nature of being creative. The more you do it, the better you get at it. The more things change and develop, and then you look back and you wonder how you ever were that bad. But it is also kind of fun because it is almost therapeutic in a sense to go back and redo things that I'm not happy with, because now that I actually am, like what you're seeing here with the ivy and everything, like I'm so much happier with what this waterfront looks like now. Is it perfect? No, like I said, it's nothing. None of this is perfect, but it's to a degree that is a lot better, significantly improved from what it was, and it genuinely makes me happy. It's very therapeutic to go back to old stuff and go, you know what? I'm going to change that. I'm going to make it better with what I know now. I'm going to scrap what I need to scrap, keep what I need to keep, and just improve it overall, you know, adding in new trees and things like that, and just realizing what I intended it to look like in the first place. Again, very therapeutic. I wholeheartedly recommend it if you play a lot of Minecraft. Visit an old save, rebuild your first house, rebuild an old, something that you built that maybe you had this idea in your head, but you could never really accomplish it, or you thought you accomplished it, but looking back, it's not exactly what you had in mind. Fix it. Redo it. I promise you, it is going to be so therapeutic. It's just so nice to do it. It makes you so much happier about it because you're like, yes, finally. And honestly, it's a great way to feel good about yourself because you can now say like, hey, maybe back in the day I couldn't accomplish this, but now I can. Now I have the skills and ability and the repertoire to aid me in doing this. So yeah, wholeheartedly recommend you do that. I do, as I'm sitting here watching the time lapse, in a sense with you, but not really with you. I don't know why I said that. As I'm sitting here watching the time lapse, in my tiny little editing window, I'm realizing, I kind of knew this, but I'm realizing now especially that this video is a little bit more boring in terms of what's actually happening. There are some builds, I promise. There's a couple of them that I'm actually really happy with, one of which is in the thumbnail. There you go. But I am happy with this episode. Again, it's an episode that needed to happen, redoing a lot of these park spaces, and I know that's not particularly the most interesting thing to probably watch in timeless form, and like some of them I had to speed up more than I normally would speed up a time lapse just because it was getting really long. I'm starting to be a lot happier with the fact that in episode 21 I just chose straight up not to show any of it, and at the time it was mainly because I was worried about being unsure with my terraforming and it coming across slow, and I'm realizing now that that was a good decision. What does that mean going forward for the next few episodes, which are mostly supposed to be about our Central Park? I don't know. You will see. We may go back to like an episode 21 format where there's some time lapse of some builds and then a lot of just touring around in like live play. It is very possible that that is how this is going to go. This next episode at least has, one decent build in it that I'm excited to show you guys. Like I said, it's a build that was in the old version of the city that I used to be proud of, and then I changed it, and then I was proud of it again, and now it's going to be changed a third time. I kind of wish I had a copy of the first iteration just so I could show you guys the different iterations and also to look for myself like how I've evolved over time in terms of my building ability. But at least we'll have the two, I guess. This last one, I'm really excited for it. I can't wait. Which, is probably not good YouTuber etiquette for me to be gushing about the video you guys aren't watching yet in this video. Like, oh yeah, just wait till next time. This episode sucks, but the next one's great. Like, yeah. But this episode, I think we get some good stuff done. As you can see in the thumbnail, I'm not going to tell you when to skip to see it because I would hope that you watch the entirety of the episode. Although I think all YouTubers know that there's an immediate drop off with people watching videos, which I never fully understood because anytime I watch a video, it's because I want to watch it. What is it with this large amount of people who click on videos and then within 30 seconds or less are like instantly like, ew, gross, I don't want to watch this? And like there's some amazing videos that I've seen, and I just know that there's no way that the statistics are that much different just because YouTube tells you what the average is for YouTube videos. So like I know what the average is, and I know how my videos like measure to the average in terms of how long people stick around before deciding they don't want to watch this anymore. And it's just crazy to me how quick people just click off. I mean, my content, I get sure, there's new people coming in, they see the thumbnail and they're like, oh, pretty Minecraft stuff, and then quickly realize it's just not their vibe. And I understand that. I'm not everyone's vibe. I have full-heartedly seen video thumbnails and gone, oh, that's gorgeous, I wish I could build like that, And then I start to watch it and I'm like, it's neat, and I think that their editing is great and everything, but it's just not my vibe. It's not my style. Personally, I, am a more laid-back kind of person, and that's the kind of style that I want to give with these videos, more lighthearted and honest in a sense. Like, I don't put a lot of editing in, mostly because I'm not good at it, but also because I just like the conversation. Like, that is my style. I like filming videos in a way like I'm talking to you and we're having this conversation. I don't know why. It makes sense to me, I guess. It's just my vibe. So, I get why that wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. That is totally all right. I just find it funny how often it's apparently not someone's cup of tea. It's like a part of me wants to feel insulted, but I just think it's more hilarious than anything. Like, so many people immediately hear my voice and they're like, oh no, I don't like this guy. Yeah, for those of you who are still watching the video, thank you. For the 20 of you that are left or something, who knows? I don't pay attention that much. It's probably better for anyone's sanity to not pay attention, but yeah. Yeah, anyways, thank you for sticking around. If you are one of those few people who are lucky enough to actually get to see the main part of this video here, the longest time-lapse section, which is doing this build, a build which was very interesting. As you can see, my typical planning wool, right, in the layered format, this is how I plan most of my major builds, whether I base them off of something real or something from my head. This one was inspired by some buildings in New York in terms of its style, but the actual layout is entirely mine. I drew it out onto a notebook and did my best to translate it to Minecraft. I don't know exactly how I feel about it. I kind of like it, but there's also some flaws that I think are there that I would change maybe. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is, and I feel like I say this a lot, but I'll say it again, this is obviously not 100% final. There's always a chance this is going to change. Will it be deleted? I don't think so. I like it too much. But there is a possibility that, going down the line, possibly even by the next World Tour in episode 30, that this will look very different. So hopefully you don't get too attached. I think it probably will look the same. Just because I feel like it gives off the vibes that I wanted it to. But again, it's not perfect. I feel like I've said that a lot this episode. It's not perfect. It's okay. I named this episode, for if you somehow didn't get the reference, which I hope you would, because I thought I was really clever with, it's not easy being green. Obviously reference to Kermit in that song. Amazing song. Grew up listening to some of the Muppets. Obviously a little before my time, but I did grow up watching a lot of older stuff. Like a lot of 80s films, not gonna lie. Again, which is hilarious because very much born in the 2000s. But hey, two parents who, grew up in the 80s, so that was like my childhood, 80s and 90s stuff. But yeah, as you can see, this area here with the kind of glass is one area that specifically was one that I was thinking of when I said it wasn't perfect. I wanted this section, I still do, I like the idea of it, but I don't think it comes across in the way that I thought it would. The measurements of everything just, for some reason, didn't quite line up, but it lines up everywhere else. And that makes me kind of a little frustrated because it's like this one piece, just this glass area that isn't quite perfect, but everything else looks right where it is. I tried moving stuff around when I was planning it, but it never looked right. It just didn't work. So this is what it is. I don't hate it. It's most likely going to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. But again, this is one of those things that may end up going, may change. For this build though, I would say my biggest gripes are with the actual towers, which obviously don't exist yet, but they're in the thumbnail. You can see both of them. And, I'll probably should wait to talk about them till they come up, but I guess all I'll say is that I'm not totally happy with them. I'm happy enough, which is, I guess, the most important thing, but I still have some gripes with them. That carousel there, you're gonna have to, I fully intended to record myself building it, and then I just never hit record. Building it was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to show it off in the kind of fly through at the end of the episode. We're not doing a live play at the end of this episode. Too much to edit if I do that. Believe it or not, this last episode, I had over an hour and a half of live play to edit down, and there was audio troubles, so I had to cut out sections that I wanted to keep, and there were honestly a lot of sections where I wasn't even speaking. And I was rewatching it over and I'm like, what was I doing? I was just like flying around, and I kept repeating the same like few sentences. Like what was I thinking? I just don't know what I was doing. Again, I'm not very good at this whole YouTube thing. It is not something that I'm very knowledgeable. I'm doing my best. Like I said, I try to give off in a kind of honest vibe just because that's kind of who I am. I'm not trying to pretend that I know what I'm doing or that I'm better at this than anyone else, because I'm not. But yeah, there are some things that I do that I just don't understand. And the crazy thing is, I've had some episodes that go really smoothly. The editing is easy, the music choices is great, the audio just works. And then I adjust one thing to make it better, and everything is 10 times worse. And for some reason, there's so much of me just not speaking that I have to edit out, or too heavy of breathing, and it just is gross to my ears. And I'm listening back and I'm like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking doing that? Yeah. Everything in retrospect sucks, Looking back, there's so many things that we would do differently. Yeah, here's the tower. Obviously up to this section, decently happy with. And you can see me right now working on this extensively. I keep redoing these sections in different block palettes and different shapes, trying to get it to work out to what I wanted. Believe it or not, this, people, is why you plan everything. Everything you're seeing right now is because I decided to change the design on the fly. I realized that from my inspiration that I liked how the building had this kind of setback almost to it. And I very quickly realized that I had not planned for that setback, but I was determined to have it. And what came out was a mess. I did my best. This is the design you're seeing right now, what I came up with in the end. I think it works decently well. I think it fits the building, and the more I've looked at it, the happier I am with it. But this was not planned at all. These measurements didn't work out, which is why it's so important, so important that you plan things. I mean, you can see all of the wool that I used to plan things. And that's because if you want things to measure out, to not have weird angles or window placements on your buildings, you need to plan everything. You might have seen when I did the Plaza Hotel this last episode, I can't remember if I talked about this or not, but I did a lot of planning. Like probably close to 40 minutes at least, just planning with the wool, looking at the building in real life, trying to figure out how much things would measure and doing it again and again and again until everything worked out. And I planned multiple levels going up, making sure that every aspect of the building would function and would work, that it would all measure out evenly. Because if you don't do that, you're gonna get to the end, or even the middle, like I did, and realize that it doesn't work. And of course, I managed to push through and come up with something that at least functions. It's not perfect. Again, I'm saying that too much this episode. It's not perfect. Again, I should rename that. This episode should be renamed. I talked about the Kermit thing. That's why I named it that. But honestly, I'm debating right now calling this episode It's Not Perfect, because apparently that's my anthem right now. It's not perfect. But it's good enough. So I'm seriously debating on changing it. This is going to be the most awkward thing ever if I end up changing it, though, because you guys are going to be like, what is he talking about? That's what he named it. I am thinking about that. Maybe that'll be a future episode, something to look forward to. I'm not cutting out this discussion, by the way. You are actively listening to me debate with myself over whether or not I should title this episode a Kermit reference because I do park stuff, or It's Not Perfect because for some reason that's just my favorite phrase. And I genuinely don't know. You know what? I'm not going to tell you what I decided. I don't know why I said that as if it's like some secret. You'll know because you're watching this video. I don't know. It's really funny going with the It's Not Perfect thing. That is genuinely super funny. Which is my goal. If you hadn't noticed, I'm not always the best about titles because sometimes I'm like, look, that I have to. Whoa, that was not supposed to happen. Where I was flying through that building. I do watch these time lapses after the fact and try to not have stuff like that. I'm not perfect. As I was saying, I do try to have kind of more clever, kind of funny titles with my videos. If you didn't notice, again, sometimes it's just plain and simple. That's what I'm doing because I want to come up with a title first and foremost that actually applies to what it is I'm doing. And then second, I want it to be somewhat entertaining because, and I get this actually, many people for watching my videos will not understand this reference. But I get it and got inspired to do this from Bro Coaster, which is a Planet Coaster like series that 2 YouTubers did. That was hilarious and is the reason why I got into anything theme park back in the day, why I'm still into theme parks. But their titles were always very applicable, but a lot of the times very funny or a reference to some kind of joke made in the video. And I aspire to do that. And so that's why I do try to make kind of references or be funny with my titles, at least somewhat. My kind of humor, which is probably not funny to most people. But anyways, actually getting back to what I'm doing in the video, this is of course the second tower, the one that I am less happy with. The top, like, I guess pedestal section, like the decorative like top of it, the crown, I guess you could say, I very much struggled with. You can see here I tried to do something interesting with the very top, and as you'll quickly see, it ended up not working at all, which I'm happy I ended up just going with the plain prismarine, which a bit of a tangent, random tangent, but I do kind of want to mention this. I do always find it a little bit funny that obviously before we had copper, prismarine and prismarine, specifically prismarine bricks, was kind of like copper texture, for people, especially for me. And after the fact, I still use it as copper texture a lot just because the actual copper tone I love, but it's slightly dark. And there are some instances where I want it to look more faded or, desaturated of a color. And prismarine bricks is perfect for that. It's very similar to like copper and cut copper at its most oxidized stage. but it's just a little bit lighter. And I just find it kind of funny that here, even now, years after copper was introduced to the game, still using prismarine to be copper. It's just something I still use. There are instances where I changed it out from old builds to be the modern copper, but there's plenty of times where now, and even with old builds, that I go, no, prismarine is what needs to be here because it just works better with the color palette. This fountain, or I guess water pool, because it doesn't really have any moving water, so it's not really a fountain, actually is very interesting. The original plan was to do something more classical in design, but I ended up going with that red crescent shape that's very, very modern, like a postmodern, really. It very much feels like something that was done the 80s or 90s. And as soon as I got to the fountain, I just decided to try something with that red concrete, and I feel like it ended up working out so well. I did rotate it in the end so that it just matches better with the entrance, because right now the back of it is facing towards that glass area and it looks bad. So I do fix that off camera. You might see that in the end fly through. But yeah, I don't know. I started working on it and I quickly realized that it just made much more thematic sense, because this building is very kind of postmodern-esque, and this kind of whole area feels very kind of a lot newer in the terms of post mid 20th century kind of new. And so that kind of a design for a fountain just makes a lot more sense. This last quote-unquote season, we did the whole recommendations thing. Didn't really do that the first 10 episodes or so, and we didn't do it last episode. I do think going forward that it's not going to be per episode. You know what, we'll leave that to be a fun thing that you can go back and look for specifically in season 2. That isn't to say that I don't want to recommend anything, because I realized as I was recording this episode that I never recommended one of my favorite shows of all time. A show that I'm currently rewatching is The Crown. Because, and this will give away when I'm recording this probably a little bit, this voiceover, the Victoria show came out recently onto Netflix, which, yay, finally, I love that show. I also recommend watching that, but watching that show, even before it was on Netflix, always makes me want to watch The Crown as well. I watch these two shows together because there's just such a great dichotomy between them. They're very similar but different, and I love both of them for different reasons and for similar reasons. I recommend watching both of them, but I realized as I was recording this episode and doing some of these later builds that I never brought that up, and I was like, wow, that's kind of surprising to me because I love The Crown. If you're gonna ask me what my favorite season is holistically, the 4th one. I recommend starting from the beginning, going to the end. It's just a good show, but I'll say season 2 is not my favorite, but it's not horrible. Especially for a first time watch, I think it's interesting. It's just not as interesting on a second time watch. My least favorite season, and technically one that I still haven't watched the entirety of, is the last season. The last few episodes and the episode that has Princess Diana's funeral are amazing. Absolutely amazing. But I could not care less about all of the William and Harry B plot stuff that was in the middle of that season. Super boring, at least to me. My sister said that was her favorite part of the season. I hated it. I thought it was so boring. I could not care less. I really didn't care. I skipped over most of those episodes. And in terms of the first 2 or 3 episodes that are up until Diana's death, my sister's read the reviews of season 6. I haven't. And when we were discussing this, I was talking about how it felt very drawn out. It just took too long and kind of ruined the suspense that they were clearly trying to build. And she said that apparently that was a common thread between a lot of the reviews, which it makes sense because I think it's just true. It's way too drawn out. So if you're gonna watch it, skip through. Just press that skip button, get the gist of it, and then move on. But the funeral episode, amazing. I think it's episode 4. Yeah, we are in the flyover, so I do have to wrap up this episode now. I hope you guys did enjoy it. As you can see, there are some things like this baseball field and stuff that was done not in the episode, but I felt like kind of matched it, but I just didn't record what I was doing. Oopsies. So yeah, there's a couple things. I also redid, coming up here, this kind of park here, if you remember, around this public housing. Didn't change much other than just adding in those new wildflowers. I think I mentioned it either in the last episode or the world tour that I was gonna do that. So just figured it would be easy enough to do the flyover, show you I did in fact do that. Yeah, coming up of course on the build of the episode and this park area, which still needs some more finer detailing, but for the most part it is gonna be open field like this, like just a lot of empty grass space. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun making it, even though, the motivation wasn't always there and I was busy, but I think it came out decently well and I'm proud of what I created. So yeah, if you want to see more, a good thing to do is, I guess, subscribing so that, hopefully you'll get notified when a new video comes out, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.